The London Olympics are only 34 days away, and for some of America's top athletes, a spot on the U.S. team is still just a dream. But whether separated from that dream by 2,000 meters of water or 400 meters of dirt, the goal and the reward are the same. Finish first and punch your ticket to London. Today, the top rowers in the United States and the top BMX riders will train their sights on the other side of the finish line, where their Olympic dreams await at the 2012 United States Olympic Trials. The NBC Sports Network's coverage of the 2012 U.S. Olympic Trials is presented by Chevrolet. Today we'll head to beautiful Chula Vista in Southern California, where the U.S. Olympic Trials in BMX are gearing up to get underway. But first, we'll start our coverage at Mercer Lake in West Windsor, New Jersey for the U.S. Olympic Trials in rowing. Jim Watson, two-time Olympian Yaz Farouk. Let's take a look at today's events. 5 spots remain on the U.S. team, and those will be filled by the winners in 3 divisions: men's and women's pairs and men's single sculls. For these athletes, the ones here today, this is their last chance at London.
There are 14 disciplines that will be contested at the London Olympic Games. Here at the U.S. Team Trials, we'll see 3: the men's single and the men's and women's pairs. The single, which is a sculling event, involves 2 oars, the rower having 1 in each hand. For the pairs, each person has 1 oar. You're either a port or a starboard. While the single is the ultimate individual endeavor, the pairs require true teamwork. We had a chance to sit down with Ty Otto and Mike Gennaro, 2 young up-and-coming rowers who won gold in this event at the Pan American Games. They told us about their very special brand of teamwork.
Rowing in the pair, you get to know your partner pretty closely. You definitely learn some dirt on the other guy.
Can I say something? Yeah, Ty got 2nd place in the Alaska State Geography Bee in 7th grade.
It's my other competitive career.
Accountability in a pair is split 2 ways, but the reward is also split 2 ways. If you're out there in the pair and something's going wrong, it's either you or your pair partner. And if you're stubborn like I am, it's always going to be Ty.
Mike and I have really different personalities, and it's strange that it works out as well as it does. I don't really know what the secret is.
A lot of people would describe us as an odd couple. We've had tons of stories in our travels up to this point, and it would just be very rewarding to know that all the hard work we've put in will finally pay off.
Michael Gennaro and Ty Otto, they grew up 3,000 miles apart, but now sharing the same boat and the same goal, and they hope both will lead them to London. All of our races are 2,000 meters, and in the semifinals, the top 2 finishers advanced to the finals. We look back at the first race for Gennaro and Otto, and that was the men's semifinal #1 in pairs. Andrew Melander, Derek Johnson in lane 4, Gennaro and Otto in 5, Silas Stafford, Tom Pezic in 6, Paul Marcy, Evan Cassidy in 7. Now the lanes won't match the bow markers, and that's because of the crosswinds that Mercer Lake has been known for, Yaz.
Yeah, you can have any kind of conditions in these situations, and the officials decided the best way to make the race fair was to just shift everybody over 2 lanes, so all 4 lanes had exactly the same conditions.
Silas Stafford and Tom Pezic, again, with 4 out on the end of their boat, but rowing in lane 6, rowing to the lead early on, and they were the favorites. Both 3 are members of the U.S. national team, and these guys have a dramatic story. They were the last 2 to be cut from the men's 8.
Not only is it a major mind shift to go from rowing a big, powerful boat like the 8 to a technical boat like the pair, but your whole journey essentially starts all over again with qualification.
See Pezic there in the bow seat, closest to the front of the boat, Stafford in the stroke, back seat. When they were cut from that men's 8 camp, they called it a crushing blow to their Olympic dreams, and as they're walking out, Stafford was telling the story. He says Pezic looked at him and said, "How about rowing the pair together?" And he said, sure, it was just that simple. They got in the boat together, and now they have a chance to get to London. It would be a dramatic turnaround for them in just a few hours.
And here you get an idea of why they knew that pair was going to be good. They honestly had rowed in the pair before. They knew that they could be a fast combination. And being the last 2 guys out of the 8, I mean, there had to be a lot of confidence there and also a lot of motivation.
Stafford from Santa Rosa, California. Pezic, Farmington Hills, Michigan. Pezic went to the University of Michigan, and Stafford is a Stanford guy. They're in the yellow boat. They have rowed from the front, from the outset, and they cruise through in the semifinal. Remember, it's the top two boats that advance, and right next to them, Michael Gennaro and Ty Otto.
Stafford and Pezic showing their experience. Gennaro and Otto, well, they were pressed to the line, but they'll have another chance in the final to show what they can do.
Michael Gennaro and Ty Otto, they didn't win, but it was good enough to get them through to the final, and that's good enough for now.
We didn't handle it all as well as we thought we should have. Ended up getting second place, and tomorrow we just need to, I think, find more length, find a little more stability, and then, you know, practice some of our tactics out there on the race course.
I think we kind of came in pretty confident, so it's nice to get a little bit of reinforcement, but I think we felt confident coming into these past couple of weeks.
Gennaro and Otto down, but certainly not out. Top two boats advance to the final. Silas Stafford and Tom Pezic, the last two cut from the men's 8 boat. Their Olympic dream lives for another race. Second semifinals in men's pair. We come back to the U.S. Olympic trial.
What inspires us to build safer?
The 2012 U.S. Olympic Trials on the NBC Sports Network are brought to you by Chevrolet. From one amazing moment to the next, Chevy runs deep. And by Gillette. Great things start with the limited edition Gillette Fusion Pro Glide. Mercer Lake, West Windsor, New Jersey, the U.S. Olympic rowing trials. Jim Watson, two-time Olympian. Yaz Farouk, one semifinal in the men's pair, already in the book. And now we move on to our second men's semifinal. Lane 2, Austin Hack, Darushia Guy. In lane 4, Declan McEachern and Ryan Monahan. And in lane 5, Brandon Schuld and Brad Bertoldo. There is one empty lane in this race, and that's because Jason Reed was unable to go.
They have a special rule. It only applies to U.S. team trials. It's called the Misadventure Rule. They created it in 1982 when the favorite, Tiff Wood from Harvard, hooked a buoy and flipped his boat. He was expected to win. Their goal is to always send the best boat to the Olympics. So what they decided after that is if there was a misfortune, then they would allow the race to be re-rowed. Jason Reed had a back spasm, so they delayed the race till noon, but he was unable to report to the start. The lane is dead. The other 3 boats race on without them.
McEachern and Monahan, favorites in this race. But at the top of the screen, Austin Hack and Darushia Guy. There you see him with the 2 marker out on the bow of the boat, and that is really the future of rowing. Both of these guys, well, you can call them young, but they're really kids.
They really are. Under 23 gold medalists. Hack made the boat as a freshman, coming off his freshman year at Stanford. That's very rare for someone that young to make a boat and then go and win a gold medal at the under 23 championships. But he's 6'8", 212 pounds. You see them racing in their college uniforms. There's Hack with his Stanford jersey and a guy with his Wisconsin jersey on behind. And what a dynamic start for the 2 youngsters in very difficult conditions, too.
Yeah, that is amazing. A 6'8" rower in the stroke seat there, left side of the screen. That's Austin Hack and Darushia Guy. Hack from Stanford, a guy from Wisconsin. Hack is only 20, a guy is 22, and they rode to the front early on. I think the kids are pretty excited about things. Going to try to win this one from the front. Again, it's only a semifinal, so the top 2 boats will advance. So really, we're rowing just to eliminate one of these entries.
I think that's an impressive start for these guys, but you know what they've got going for them? You got that 6'8" frame, you got a big cross headwind. You can really get your power on the oar, and they did. And and you got to wonder, like with these guys, you're going, what's going on with the Stanford and Wisco boys getting the jump on us experienced pair rowers here? With both McEachern and Ryan Monahan, who have raced this event at the World Championships, and then also Schuld and Bertoldo coming out of the California Rowing Club.
I'm watching a guy at the top of the screen there, and he probably doesn't have much view looking right at the back of Austin Hack, the 6'8" guy. He can't see anything.
All he needs to see, I guess, is the rhythm that's being set in front of him. There you see Hack look over at the competition.
Yeah, where's
and the
Waldo?
lead. Yeah. And unfortunately, though, they're noticing that the lead is shrinking.
Remember that all of these races are 2,000 meters, so we'll race in just under 7 minutes. Just 3 boats here in the second semifinal. Top 2 finishers advance to the final. We've already advanced Silas Stafford, Tom Pezic, Michael Gennaro, and Ty Otto.
Well, if I was a college kid coming into this race, I would go after it just as aggressively. But there you saw the margin closing with McEachern and Monahan, the experienced pair rowers rowing a slightly lower stroke rate. Well, they were, but right here it looks like they just took the rating up now. It's getting serious as they cross the 1,000-meter mark, and it's time for them to make their move.
Hack and a guy at the top of the screen, McEachern and Monahan at the bottom of the screen. And although a guy and Hack have the youth, McEachern and Monahan have the pedigree. Both of these guys rowed at Cambridge.
Both boats around 36 beats a minute. That's a very aggressive stroke rate, especially in a headwind like this. But an Olympic berth is on the line. 2 boats go through. And the other key thing in the semifinals is you really do want to have the opportunity to test out your race plan. So even though these 2 boats have separated, it appears, from Schald and Bertaldo, you got to make, and they have not. There is still plenty of overlap, and there's plenty of pressure on all 3 boats, and Bertaldo and Schald seem to be on the move now.
Yeah, that 5 boat starts to nose back into the screen. Remember, it's not just advancing to the finals, but everybody is thinking about those last seats on the way to London. U.S. Olympic trials. These 2 boats, the 2 that finish first and second here, advance to the finals, and then whoever wins the final, just 1 boat will go to London.
That's a glimpse of Brandon Schald. Prior to rowing, he was a ballet dancer, and a serious ballet dancer. He spent 5 years in Spain after dancing throughout his high school career. He's 6'5". When his career was over, he was looking for something else to do, and the junior coach at the Marin Rowing Club in San Francisco discovered him and introduced him to the Cal coaches and started a whole new career.
Yeah, he was training with the San Francisco Ballet. You see McEachern and Monahan. Those are the students at the top, Hack and a guy. McEachern and Monahan, they actually work for a living. Monahan works in corporate finance. McEachern is an internet researcher. Coming July 27th, the London Olympics are on NBC and the NBC Sports Network. Your home for coverage of the most compelling U.S. teams all day, every day. It's the London Olympic Games coming July 27th to NBC and the NBC Sports Network.
Well, inside 400 meters to go, and there is still overlap with 3 boats. No one is comfortable. Only 2 boats go on. Schald and Bertaldo have just edged ahead now of Hack and a guy. But McEachern and Monahan, well, there's no comfort there, because now the sprint sequence is about to unfold, and anything can happen in these final 30 strokes of the race.
McEachern and Monahan were just stalking Hack and a guy. Now they have moved a full boat length in front of them. And look at Schald and Bertaldo now, who've nosed up into second. Top 2 boats advance to the final. Finish 3rd here, you're finished.
Well, that start for Hack and a guy was extremely aggressive, and now they're paying for it. It's 2,000 meters. You can't fault them for going after it, certainly. And what a race this is turning out to be as they close in on the finish line.
And you don't have to win this race, but it looks like Schald and Bertaldo are trying to do just that, as they have closed now half a boat length maybe now on McEachern and Monahan.
And they just kicked the stroke rate up again.
Look at that 5 boat. Lunging and dropping as we near the finish line. McEachern and Monahan are going to hold on to win the second semifinal. Schald and Bertaldo, a great close in the last 1,000 meters to get up for second. Austin Hack and Darushi, a guy, a nice race for the kids, but it's not enough on this day.
And here we see that brilliant start by the youngsters, Hack and a guy. But the experience of McEachern and Monahan, eventually they were able to ease their boat ahead. The surprise, though, from Schald and Bertaldo with a beautiful sprint, pushing them all the way to the finish line. We're going to have quite a race, I think, in this final.
Daglin McEachern and Ryan Monahan cruising over to the recovery dock. They are through. They win by just over a second, keeping the eye on London by keeping the focus on themselves.
We just kind of stick to ourselves and do what we do and just go as fast as we can from point A to point B. And, you know, today turns out that it worked out well. But, you know, these guys are all pretty good, so to walk away with it completely is going to be something tough for anybody to do.
Our 4 finalists are set in the men's pair. When we return to New Jersey, we'll have more rowing. But first, we head to dry land for the U.S. Olympic trials in BMX. Southern California is the first stop on the road to London.
So we're down to the final of the U.S. Olympic trials in BMX. But up next, the road to London becomes a waterway. We'll head back to New Jersey for more rowing coming up next.
Welcome back to the 2012 U.S. Olympic Trials. Today's coverage is presented by Chevrolet. U.S. Olympic Trials for rowing held Mercer Lake, West Windsor, New Jersey, which is just outside of Princeton, home, of course, to one of America's finest institutions of higher learning. Jim Watson, 2-time Olympian Yaz Farouk, and we have reached the finals. We'll begin in the men's single sculls. 4 scullers entered. 1 will go to London. We race over 2,000 meters, pick it up in lane 2, rowing out of the Seattle Rowing Center in Chester, New Hampshire, Jonathan Greer. In lane 3, racing unaffiliated from New Fairfield, Connecticut, 30-year-old Ken Cherkowski. He's your favorite in this race. Mike Savigny, the California Rowing Club in Berkeley, is in lane 4. And a legend, Jim Dietz from the All-America Rowing Camp, is in lane 5. His dad was a 2-time Olympian in Munich and Montreal. 2,000 meters to London. And out of the blocks we go. Greer is in lane 2. That'll be at the top of your screen. Cherkowski's in 3. Savigny in 4. And Dietz is in lane 5.
Excellent start there in lane 2, and why not? You want to try to take out Ken Cherkowski because he is the favorite here. He competed in the 2008 Olympic Games. He finished 11th there. And last year actually qualified this event for the United States at the World Championships. But qualifying the event at the Worlds just means you've earned a berth for your nation. You still have to earn the seat.
Cherkowski is 30, right in the prime of his career right now. Savigny is 38 years old. He's the elder statesman in this group. Dietz down at the bottom is 26. And there's a good look at Ken Cherkowski. You mentioned second Olympic berth on the line for him.
Greer may have gotten the jump on that start, but you just saw the look. You saw the face of Ken Cherkowski looking very composed, and now you see why, because he's drawing level, understroking Greer, rowing at a lower stroke rate, and now easing his bow ball ahead.
Early in this race, but you wonder if Jonathan Greer is thinking back to 2008 in these Olympic trials when he finished second in the men's double sculls. Second doesn't get you to the Olympic Games, and it won't in this race either. Only one, the winner of this race, will advance to the Olympic Games. And it's Cherkowski now starting to move out by a half a boat length.
Cherkowski rowing at 35 beats a minute. Earlier this year, he won the National Selection Regatta. That earned him an opportunity to race at the World Cup. If he had finished in the top 4 at either the Belgrade or the Munich World Cup, he could have clinched the spot right then and there, but he did not, and that relegated him to come back to this Olympic trials and allow Greer, Savigny, and Dietz to have a chance against him here in this final.
You would wonder if Cherkowski, pretty disappointed at those World Cup events. He didn't even make the finals. He was 12th in Belgrade, and he was 9th in Lucerne. Now he's out by more than a boat length here.
And Cherkowski understands, you know, it's one of the most competitive events in the Olympics. There will be 36 entries in London. So a top 12 finish at the Olympic Games is really something to be proud of. And he's definitely the guy with the most experience here going against the likes of Mahe Drysdale, reigning world champion, Ondrej Sinek from the Czech Republic. I mean, really just giants in this sport. And Cherkowski now out to a length and a half lead over Greer, Savigny, and Dietz.
We've seen Sinek and Drysdale on the World Cup circuit. Does Cherkowski match up against those guys?
I think that I think that they are in a league of their own. But the opportunity to represent your nation in the single scull, it's the individual endeavor, the only event in the sport that's considered the greatest team sport at the Olympics, where it's one person, it's you against the world.
You know, Jerkowski, after what many would call good results on the World Cup, but for him disappointing the 12th and the 9th, he said the same thing after both races. He was quoted both times as saying, I need to find more speed. What does that mean, and where do you find it?
Well, he realizes he's up against two physiological specimens in Drysdale and Scenic, so he's going to need to do something. One thing that was clear in this race, he's got a big lead now at 1,000 meters, but he was down off the start. So I can imagine him doing some quickness work to get out of the blocks and try to be more explosive there.
Yeah, we always talk about strength and speed in rowing, but the more I watch it, the more I realize what a part that patience plays. And a guy like Jerkowski, who watched Greer get off to that quick start, he just kept his eyes on his own boat and took care of his own work. And slowly but surely he picked up his stroke rate, and now it's translated into, well, more than a 2-boat length lead on the rest of the field.
You know, and at the same time, I keep thinking it's the Olympic trials. You know, here he's got all of this experience and all of these races under his belt, and it still comes down to this final race. And now for him, he's counting down this final 750 meters to the line.
Yeah, we mentioned before that he already rowed in an Olympic Games in Beijing, finishing 11th, but he also is a veteran of 2 World Championships as well. 2010, he was 12th. 2011, he was 11th. So he's been good for quite a few years now.
He trains in California with the U.S. light women's double. And Dave O'Neill at for the Cal Women's program has been helping him a little bit. And it's great to have a sparring partner when you're in a single scull like this, because training on your own in single, as much as you want to think you can do it, when you have a good sparring partner, it makes all the difference. And the light women's double of Julie Nichols and Kristen Hedstrom, they're on their way to London as well. They finished in the top 4 at the Lucerne World Cup. So now, all going well, he's going to join them. And the 2 sparring partners will take the show from California to the London Olympic Games.
You can hear the wind buffeting the microphones after 2 days of rain and wind. The finals actually dawned clear, blue skies, just a bit of a light headwind. The conditions actually pretty good for the finals. When you look at that wide shot like that, it's a bit misleading. It looks like it's still a race, but Jerkowski dominating. He took this thing over at about 750 meters, and he is cruising now to the finish line. You can see the 1750 marker. We go 2,000 meters. And a quick glance over the shoulder. Jim Dietz, who's never really been in this race. Savigny has also fallen off the pace, and Greer's early start is costing him now. Jerkowski was very patient, continued to accelerate throughout the first 1,000 meters, and now he is controlling from the front.
I was fortunate to compete in 2 Olympics, and I'm just thinking about the thoughts that must be going through his head. You know, a necessary step, this Olympic trials, to punch that ticket to London, and at the same time as you're closing in on the line, all of the effort, all of the toil over the years, and for him, you know, the past 8 years. And now you're closing in on the finish, and you're going, okay, it's all paying off. I'm going to get my opportunity. I'm going to get to go to my 2nd Olympic Games, and I'm going to get to represent my nation. And as I'm just thinking about it, I have chills, because that feeling never gets old.
For Ken Jerkowski, holding off the field probably not nearly as difficult as holding off those thoughts that he is indeed closing in on his 2nd Olympic berth. As he crosses the buoys, Ken Jerkowski stops the clock in just under 7:16. He was hardly pressed. Ken Jerkowski is going back to the Olympic Games. A dominating performance by Ken Jerkowski, who trailed only really for about the first 500 meters, and then he caught and overtook Jonathan Greer. That's Greer at the top of the screen. That was the last time that he saw Greer. Savigny couldn't answer. Dietz just didn't have his best game today. Ken Jerkowski, the winner of the men's single sculls, Ken Churkowski is going back to the Olympics. Dominating performance by an Olympic veteran. Ken Churkowski, he's on the recovery dock with Yaz Farouk.
You're coming off of 2 World Cups, but still here it is. It's the Olympic trials. You know, this is the last shot. You're sitting in the blocks with excellent competition. The nerves still have to be there a little bit because this was it today.
Oh, of course. If you don't get nervous, then you really shouldn't be doing this because then it's not meaningful. So I think it's all about what you do with that nervous energy and how you channel that into making your best performance. So hats off to the guys that race, and they really did a fantastic job.
Well, nobody was better than Ken Churkowski. He's going back to the Olympic Games. Coming up next, it's the women's pair final as the road to London continues. Welcome back to the 2012 U.S. Olympic Rowing Trials here at Mercer Lake, West Windsor, New Jersey, just outside of Princeton. On a perfect day. Conditions have calmed down a bit of wind earlier in the week, but for the finals, it's been perfect. Women's pair final, and it really amounts to a match race. Amanda Polk and Jamie Redmond will be in lane 3, and the Sarahs, Sarah Zelinka and Sarah Hendershot in lane 4. They're the underdogs, but these two boats have already seen each other once on this lake.
Yeah, even though only 2 boats were entered, they did have a heat where they raced side by side just like this, and only 2.5 seconds separated the 2 boats. So it really makes me think we could have quite a race on our hands here in the final.
And both of these boats come out of the U.S. Rowing Training Center, which is just outside of Oklahoma City. Do they train together? They must know each other pretty well.
They do, and I think one of the reasons you only see 2 boats in this race is because the U.S. team is so tight, and the competition for the boats on that team is so incredible. I think other people realize that a boat from that camp is the boat that's going to go to London, so no one else even came to the trials.
Just underway, 2,000-meter race. Amanda Polk, Jamie Redmond, the top of your screen. Sarah Zelinka and Sarah Hendershot at the bottom. The boat at the top, Polk and Redmond, definitely the favorites coming into this race, and they row to the front right out of the blocks.
Both are members of the U.S. team that won the World Championships in the women's 8 last year. They also just set a new world best time in Lucerne, Switzerland at the World Cup only a few weeks ago. But after that race, they went into selection, and Polk and Redmond were the final cuts from the boat, and that was only 1 week ago.
The women's 8 boat for the United States has been absolutely dominant. They will be the gold medal favorites going to the Olympic Games. The United States hasn't been beaten in the women's 8 in more than 5 years, but Polk and Redmond no longer in that boat and now trying to row themselves to London here in the women's pair final.
I think about what it must be like to be in the hunt for that 8 only a week ago. Just find out, okay, yeah, you just set a world best time in this event. You know, the U.S. women's 8 is a favorite for the gold medal in London. And then all of a sudden, here you are, back out on the course, now fighting for a spot on the team and an opportunity for the Olympic dream. And so they have to start all over again.
Polk and Redmond, 2 young women, have certainly accomplished quite a bit already in their lives. Amanda Polk on the right side of your screen with the ponytail, a graduate of Yale, degree in education back in 2008, and her partner Polk went to Notre Dame, biochem degree also in 2008. Both of these are 5-time U.S. national team members. How do you put that disappointment behind that, maybe that confusion that you row that women's 8, you're part of an incredible team, and you're thinking about going to London as a gold medal favorite, and now you don't even have a spot. You might not make the games at all.
Exactly. And when Elle Logan and Erin Cafaro, they were representing the United States in the women's pair in the Lucerne World Cup. They finished second there, but then they decided that they wanted to go for the women's 8 instead. And at that point, everybody knew that 2 people were going to go out. And then it became, you know, the fight for your life.
Zelinka and Hendershot, they were asked about being the underdogs in this race to the favorites Polk and Redmond. Well, Hendershot, who's a bit of a spark plug, said, we like being the underdog. We like rowing under pressure. Been training for 2 years, as they call it, 2 long years. But those years just get longer, don't they? 2 isn't very much.
Well, you know, when I think about the experience that's in the U.S. Women's 8, you have a lot of people in there in that system who've been in there for 8 years.
Exactly,
So, you know, 2 years, you're in the Olympic trials right now. I think that's a pretty outstanding 2 years. And Hendershot's a world champion from the women's 4, and Zelenka has raced in the women's 8 as well at the World Cup. So a lot of experience in a short amount of time, really, for all 4 of these young women. Just fantastic careers. And right now, this lead by Redmond and Polk, they definitely had an excellent start, and they've put a good piece of distance between themselves and the Saras.
Yeah, as we went through 1,000 meters, they were more than 2 boat lengths ahead. And you can see now they're trying to pick up the stroke rate here just a little bit. Maybe just put them away early in this race.
Well, good composure in that boat. And again, in the back of your heads, I'm sure they're going, let's make sure that we widen this gap, because it was not a huge win in that heat. And you know, it's the Olympic trials. I mean, the pressure is just huge. 12:50 down now, 7:50 to go, and still about a length and a half of open water between the 2 boats.
For Zelenka and Hendershot, it is go time if they want to go to London. They have got to come on with a furious charge over the last 750 meters. Out front, Amanda Polk and Jamie Redmond. Redmond is from Spokane, Washington, Polk from Pittsburgh. And there are the Saras. Sarah Zelenka and Sarah Hendershot. Hendershot wearing the hat right side of your screen. Hendershot had some Olympic inspiration when she was just a kid as a 10-year-old. She wrote a book report on Janet Evans. She said, she made me want to go to the Olympics. She was going to be a swimmer, but she had a shoulder injury, so she had to shelve that, and then she found rowing.
Both boats, it appears, have tried to start building that stroke rate. I just saw Amanda Polk glance over at the Saras, and that's because they have closed the margin.
Yeah, they are charging now. You can see they have closed the gap. Now it's just a full boat length. And here they come. Here come the Saras. But is it too late?
Hendershot and Zelenka have been training in the pair exclusively these last few weeks while the 8 has been sorting itself out. And look at the charge now from Hendershot and Zelenka.
Oh, they were back more than 2 boat lengths with 750 meters to go. And now a quick glance over the shoulder by Sarah Hendershot, wondering how much more they are pulling on it. Now just the length of the deck. They continue to close that gap.
Hendershot and Zelenka up to 38 beats a minute. Polk and Redmond at 36. Every stroke, the Saras are taking about 3 more inches. And here you see the colors of the buoys change. That means they're closing in the final 250 meters of the race, and now the bows are only inches apart.
Here come the Saras. Zelenka and Hendershot nearest the camera. They have eaten up all that distance, and now they nose in front. Polk and Redmond are fading in the stretch. Zelenka and Hendershot, they said they've been training for 2 years. 2 long years. There's nothing more we could do. We are ready, and now they are proving it. They have gone in front. Is this their ticket to London? They can see the finish line. No answer from Polk and Redmond. It's Zelenka and Hendershot nearest the camera. What a brilliant race. They were being routed at the 1,000-meter mark and storming back and carrying that momentum all the way to the finish line. The underdogs are going to win it, and they're going to London. Sarah Zelenka, Sarah Hendershot win the women's pair final. And of course, there's always 2 stories. Polk and Redmond cannot believe what just happened. Elation on one side, realization on the other. You take a look again. Zelenka and Hendershot. They didn't panic when they were back more than 2 boat lengths. The quick glance by Hendershot, they knew they were pulling on Polk and Redmond, who were running out of juice and fading over the last 500 meters. Zelenka and Hendershot rowing all the way through the finish line and winning in 7:27. Zelenka and Hendershot, they said they like being the underdogs. They like rowing under pressure. Yaz is with our upset winners, the Saras, Zelenka, and Hendershot on the recovery dock.
In the last round against these guys, you got within 2 seconds. What did it take to win the race today and punch that ticket to London?
I think it took believing in ourselves. We knew we could do it. And we just knew the whole time, no matter where we were, we figured we were going to be down. We knew that we could come back from anything. And we really just believed in ourselves the whole way.
Yep. Talk us through the race.
Oh, God, it was all a blur. It started out, we were down pretty soon. And we just kept pushing back, inching, and then we brought the rate up probably the last 750. And just kept bringing it up, and we were able to get him in the end.
The Sarahs, Zelinka, and Hendershot on their way to London. We come back, it's the men's pair final and one more ticket to the Olympic Games. Welcome back to the 2012 U.S. Olympic Trials. Today's coverage is presented by Chevrolet. We move on to the men's pair final. 4 boats over 2,000 meters, and only the winner goes to London. Lane 2, Brandon Schald, Brad Bertaldo from the California Rowing Club. In 3, Silas Stafford and Tom Pezic. They won semifinal number 1. In lane 4, Declan McEachern, Ryan Monahan, also from the California Rowing Club. They won semifinal number 2. And Mike Gennaro and Robert Otto, they call him Ty, in lane 5. 4 boats, 2,000 meters, 1 ticket to London and the Olympic Games. And off we go. Stafford and Pezic, your favorites in lane 3. Lane 2 at the top of your screen, lane 5 at the bottom. And 4 boats are even through the first 50 meters.
Stafford and Pezic dominated their semi over Gennaro and Otto. McEachern and Monahan, though, a very tight race with Schald and Bertaldo in their semi. The difference, though, is the 2 semis were not held back-to-back. There was a delay for the race between Schald, Bertaldo, and McEachern and Monahan due to a misadventure. So you can't compare the times. So a little bit of mystery coming into this final. And only 1 boat goes on, as we know, to the London Olympic Games.
And again, in the yellow boat, the story that we've been talking about throughout the semifinals and throughout these U.S. Olympic trials, Silas Stafford, Tom Pezic, the last 2 guys to be cut from the men's 8 camp, what they called a crushing blow to their Olympic dreams. Well, this is their last chance to make the Olympics, and this shot was not expected. At least they didn't see themselves in this boat at these trials.
Massive headwind here that's built up. It's a 10 to 12 mile an hour headwind. This race was delayed because of that misadventure. They ran the trials for the men's single and the women's pair in the morning. And here, this is a late afternoon race. The wind has really built up. Extremely difficult conditions. And when you have a big headwind like this, it tends to tighten up the margins. And that's why right here, a much quicker start from Schald and Bertaldo because they are level with Stafford and Pezic. Schald and Bertaldo trailed in their semi until the very end where they clinched that final qualifying spot. Well, obviously they did some work on their start because they just blazed out of the blocks.
Yeah, Schald and Bertaldo were last in that semifinal and then closed strong over the last 500 meters. And actually, we're closing on McEachern and Monahan right at the finish line. So they are a threat here in the final. Again, 4 boats, but only the winner gets the berth in the Olympic Games. At the top of the screen, that is Schald and Bertaldo, the California Rowing Club. And just below them in the blue jerseys, that's Stafford and Pezic.
So look at McEachern and Monahan. Their bow number 4, just a deck back from Stafford and Pezic, but Schald and Bertaldo still with a lead of just a couple of feet as we close in on the 1,000-meter mark.
Yeah, those guys in the white jerseys with the red stripe. McEachern left side of your screen, Monahan on the right. Monahan went to Cornell, McEachern went to Cal, but afterwards both went to grad school at Cambridge. And McEachern, part of the winning side in the 2010 Oxford-Cambridge boat race. I guess that's the equivalent of the Harvard-Yale football game, right? That's the big one. Historic anyway.
And here now, Stafford and Pezic. Oh, wow, this is just a race stroke for stroke. And this feeling when you are side by side with another boat like this, and everything is on the line. Two very different styles, Bertoldo and Schald, a little smoother through the finishes, a big front end, big catches where the blade enters the water for Stafford and Pezic, and you can see the power that they launch with every stroke when those blades enter the water.
Every time Stafford and Pezic surge, there's an answer from Schald and Bertoldo, not losing contact. As you see the bow markers surging and falling with each stroke.
You can really hear that wind, and when you're rowing into a headwind like this, the pressure of that wind on your back, you're just trying to make sure that you keep pressing the boat into the wind. You've got to stay very composed with your legs and body swing timing. The better the swing, the headwind, the better the boat tends to move. But also, when you've got those big choppy waves, your blade work has got to be clean.
Stafford and Pezic now starting to separate just a little bit. Call it half a boat length. Schald and Bertoldo. This is where you find out what you're made of, how much that training pays off. Halfway through this race, can they keep contact with Stafford and Pezic?
Well, the rhythm in this Stafford and Pezic boat is extremely dynamic. Just every catch, every time they put the blade in the water, just launching it a little bit further.
We started with 14 boats in the men's pair at the U.S. Olympic trials. Went down to 8 boats in the semifinals. Now we're down to 4. And this race became quickly about 2 boats. The 2, Schald and Bertoldo, and the 3 boats, Stafford and Pezic. And now Stafford and Pezic are trying to run away and claim that ticket to London. The yellow boat out clear now.
And conditions like this now are going to favor Stafford and Pezic. Pezic is a pair specialist, a self-made man, essentially. University of Michigan, the men's team is a club team. He and one other guy were so much better than the rest of the other guys on the team. They just rode in the pair all the time. Seriously motivated Tom Pezic. When he was in camp, he'd get up before everybody else and he'd get on the erg in the laundry room and do an extra 60 minutes on his own. Meanwhile, Stafford, the man who was denied, rowing for the top boat for the 4, the priority boat, breaks a rib, gets sent over to the 8 camp, gets healed up, breaks another rib, gets healed up, and then these 2 guys, the last 2 men cut from the 8. Now it all comes down to this final pairs race, this final chance for a shot to compete in the London Olympics.
McEachern and Monahan in the foreground, chasing Stafford and Pezic. Stafford and Pezic with a quick glance. Most of their attention had been to their right at Schald and Bertoldo, but those guys have fallen off the pace. And just coming into frame there, Gennaro and Otto in the 5 boat. But now just 250 meters for Stafford and Pezic to London. All of that pain, all of that suffering, they have paid the price, and now they are closing in. 1 boat goes, the rest will be left behind.
They look like 2 guys on a mission, counting the strokes down to their Olympic dream.
3-year members of the U.S. national team, never been to an Olympic Games. You have to clear your head and concentrate on the task at hand, and here comes the charge now. That's the 5 boat, Gennaro and Otto making a late close. Can they get up? They're gonna run out of room. Stafford and Pezic nearing the finish line. The injuries, the work, all paid in full. Stafford and Pezic are going to London. And you can hear it coming out of the mouth of Silas Stafford, a celebratory scream. He knows now he has accomplished his goal. He's an Olympian.
Talk about a year of frustration, ending ultimately in elation. Down slightly off the start. What a courageous start from Schald and Bertoldo. But they rode through them. Just serious catches coming from Stafford and Pezic. When you put the blade in the water like that, we call that dropping bombs in rowing, and boy, did they ever.
Pezic pounding his chest, and Stafford finally letting it all out. Putting up with 3 years of suffering for 1 chance to go to the Olympics. Stafford picking up Pezic, and it looks like he's going in. Silas Stafford And he's going to make a splash himself. Maybe they'll make one in London as well. What a great moment for Silas Stafford and Tom Pezic. They win the men's pair. They're on their way to London. Yes, fishing him out of the lake and meeting him for some reacts on the recovery dock.
So Silas, you're in the 4 camp, stress fracture rib.
Yeah.
Get better. You're in the 8 camp, stress fracture rib. You get better. Then you're the last guy out. Here you end up in the pair. Your thoughts on going to the London Olympics?
It's pretty surreal. It hasn't really set in, I don't think. You know, it's been a really long journey for 3 years, getting cut from the team last year and then being so close to making the 8 and then getting injured kind of the perfect wrong time. So, I mean, it feels amazing, but I think it's going to feel even better tomorrow and even better the day after that.
How about these conditions? The final ends up being delayed, a massive headwind. How did that play into the race?
That's just life. I mean, you know, we train for a headwind, for a crosswind, for a tailwind. We like to think of ourselves as a tailwind crew, so we're a little disappointed to see the headwind, but we believed in it. And, you know, things like the delays, that's going to happen. That can happen at the Olympics, it happens at World Championships all the time, so that's no big deal.
The final 5 rowers are booked for London. We come back, we head to Chula Vista, where the final 4 will race for one final spot. U.S. Olympic trials in BMX. The 2012 U.S. Olympic trials on the NBC Sports Network are brought to you by Canon, What Will You Imagine? And by Coca-Cola Zero, real Coke taste and 0 calories. Princeton has always been a proving ground for America's best and brightest, and just a few miles from campus, the country's top rowers battled for the chance to represent the United States New Jersey, and Chula Vista, California. Stay tuned. The IZOD IndyCar Series continues next. It's qualifying for the Iowa Corn Indy 250. And remember, coming July 27th, the London Olympic Games are on NBC and the NBC Sports Network. For Yaz Farouk, Luke Van Balen, Jamie Bestwick, and Dre Avent, I'm Jim Watson saying so long from the U.S. Olympic Trials.